And through Kale, I got to meet a company that ended up being one of our first few investments. And that's actually where we'd like to go now. I'd like to introduce the founder and CEO of SimpleCast, which is a company based out of Kingston, New York. And we want to highlight SimpleCast because we think it shows a bit about what's possible with the right support, capital, mentorship, and the right mindset of that we'll get into with Brad a little bit around both how you fundraise and manage a business in the startup phase, as well as the power of distributed business, that supporting a local business doesn't necessarily mean that all of the employees need to be right here. As we've all learned in the time of COVID, this remote thing actually works pretty well. So with that, I want to welcome Brad in. Brad, if you could just say hello and maybe share a little bit about your background and how SimpleCast came to be, and I'll sort of say into your hands, so to speak.
Absolutely. Thank you, Johnny. It's good to see you. Sad we can't do this in person, but I know we don't have a lot of time, so I won't go too much into the background, but SimpleCast was actually my fourth startup. Most of my startups kind of dealt directly with creator tools, making it easier for people to take something that they're building and put it onto the internet. My company, most notably before SimpleCast, was a company called Verb. It was a do-it-yourself website builder. We were kind of early to the game before Squarespace was beautiful and easy to use. And that really kind of got me connected with creators and helping them put content on the internet. Shortly after a Verb exit, I started a content incubator. I kind of wanted a little bit of a break from necessarily building software and wanted to kind of more work directly with the creators. So started this incubator. In the process, ended up working with a couple of podcasts and realizing that podcasting in 2015 was exactly the same way it was the last time I'd looked at it in 2006. So caught the SaaS software bug again and decided to kind of give it a go with SimpleCast in mid-late 2016.
Great. And so you identified a lead investor with Steadfast. The lead there was someone that you knew and that had also been studying podcasting. Like you said, another content opportunity in the internet space. To me, the beautiful thing when we heard about you guys was, oh, another content network. This is a story that we've seen over the last 120 years play again and again. So you can kind of see how it's going to play out, whether it was radio, TV, internet, video, news, print, moving over to the internet. And somehow it seemed like podcasting had been left over right to video. We had YouTube, we had, some consolidation happening in the video market, but radio hadn't really transitioned into an internet. This podcasting was really fragmented. So Dave at Steadfast saw the opportunity, and then you were raising for this fund. You had acquired the company previously called Audios, I believe. Is that right? And
SimpleCast. Yep. I
right.
brought the assets in. Yep.
You had taken that and you went out for your first fundraise, and you were at the same time getting to know folks in the Hudson Valley. And I believe you went to a tech meetup.
Yeah. So kind of there was two serendipitous experiences in raising money for our seed round. One was, of course, yourself and the startup fund, and the other was Steadfast, which I'll talk about in a second. But I had been spending a lot of time upstate since probably about 2012, just lucky enough to have friends that had houses up there. Fell in love with the area and wanted to find a way to be there myself. And in late 2015, somebody introduced me to Kale, and got to know Kale just over email. If I'd be upstate on a weekend, we would grab coffee in Uptown. And then in early 2017, that's when, I moved to the Hudson Valley, and Kale and I started spending more time together. And I went and looked the dates up for this. So it was September 27, 2017. Kale asked me to come and speak to the tech meetup. And SimpleCast was still very young at this point. We had only raised a very small friends and family round in January of that year. So very bootstrapped. The team was only 4 people. Had the opportunity to speak at the tech meetup about this very young company that I was trying to build. It was very difficult to raise money for podcasting, believe it or not, just 3 years ago. Just the eye rolls from investors. And really, is it going to be a thing? It's been around for 15 years. Why isn't it a thing yet? So it was very difficult. And then kind of through the process, Dave Ambrose at Steadfast Venture Capital, I met Dave at a co-working space 10 years prior when I was running Verb. And we kind of lost contact. And then he saw in mid 2017, around the time that I met Johnny, he saw that I was building SimpleCast in the podcasting and the audio space. And Steadfast was very interested in what was going to happen with the audio space. So within a period of kind of 1 month, Kale introduces me to Johnny. Dave at Steadfast reaches out to me on Twitter. And things just started kind of moving quickly. And it was a very fast round too. I mean, relationships were built in September, October, and we closed the round, in December.
And as you said, we were fortunate to have another piece of the entrepreneurial support group in Hudson Valley Tech Meetup provide that introduction. And when Kale said this is somebody you should get to know, and as I said, being in an industry that I felt pretty comfortable was going to be something, despite what some other investors were looking at, was exciting for me. I actually remember we went to Outdated, which ironically, if that's the right word, I had an office in that space as a co-working space when there was a Beehive on Wall Street there in that exact location. So it was good to be back in the same space when we met. And you and Dave, when we first sat down to talk about the business, you and Dave were getting the round together, and we saw it was going to move quickly. So I started figuring out how do we do sort of a lightning due diligence. For those who don't know, a member managed seed capital fund, the members get involved in due diligence on the potential investments. And as Riva could share, it can be a laborious process. We really put the companies through the ringer. It can be strung out, but we want to be really thorough and we want to provide our insight. We did that with Brad, but I also accelerated the due diligence, and Brad introduced me to Dave before Brad even presented to us. So I got to understand what the lead investor's mindset was, why they were interested, and got to dig into Brad's experience and his vision.
They tricked you into it. But yeah, that whole first portion moved really quickly. I looked this up too. Like you and I were introed on October 18th. We met for coffee on October 19th. You spoke with Steadfast the following day, and then I presented to the fund that following Monday. So, I maybe over prepared for that presentation to the fund.
It was quite a run. And I remember in due diligence, people were like, well, why doesn't Google just do this? What if YouTube decides to just do podcasts? And looking at it today, and this is where I'd love for you to share a brief overview of the acquisition. But looking at it today, I'm a Google guy. YouTube just released, and is really making YouTube Music a thing and forcing out their old Google Music player. Yep. Still has a separate, somewhat hobbled podcasting app. So the big guys, the tech leads, are still sort of missing this. So some of our concerns did not come to fruition. And actually, SimpleCast is our first and only to date successful exit, and in a very quick time. And as we look to our mentor fund, Enya, who's been at this a few years longer than us and has, I think, 6 or 8 more companies than us. They have not yet had an exit, though they have some great opportunities in line. So fast forwarding a couple years, 2.5 years or so, can you give us in brief the most recent news and how that transpired and where you guys are going from here?
Yeah, fast forwarding 2.5 years, when I started this journey, I didn't have any gray hair. Now I have a ton of it. It happened fast, but it was a lot of work, as you know, Johnny. So just I guess 6 weeks ago today, we were acquired by SiriusXM Pandora, and basically to join in their endeavors as someone that really knows talk and knows content, and to really help build out the kind of podcast vision at that. We joined, they acquired Pandora about 1.5 years ago, I think for about $3.5 billion. Along with Pandora, they also acquired a company called AdsWiz, which is a audio monetization service. So one of the big pieces that we kind of filled for Sirius and Pandora was the fact that, we are a publishing platform. We're very deep in analytics and API, but for creators using our platform, there was no easy just switch they could flip and make money. So that's kind of our first step within the Sirius Pandora family, is a deep relationship and integration with the AdsWiz team. And then about 2 weeks after SimpleCast was acquired, Sirius made their next play with the acquisition of Stitcher. If you're familiar with them, and that was about a $330 million deal. So definitely it's exciting to get to be a part of a company that is really kind of putting the pieces on the table and starting to move them around of kind of like where they kind of exist as a audio first company.
Great, awesome. And so for us at the Hudson Valley Startup Fund, this is full life cycle for us. This is what an investment fund is sets out to do, is invest early. And we did invest in a subsequent round, and we were in what was referred to as the seed round, and then the Series A round. And it was great to follow along on this journey, a team that executed and scaled, became bi-coastal with Brad's right hand, Janine out of LA, and a team across the country, but still centered here in the Hudson Valley. And Brad plans to continue to be centered here in the Hudson Valley as a member of the SiriusXM team. So for us, it's a proud moment, and it's an exciting moment. And as Brad has shared with me several times, he looks to do, and I will say, hopefully on a slightly larger scale than I was able to do as a bootstrap company, to be involved in our entrepreneurial community here in the Hudson Valley, to continue as a partner with Startup Fund and other individual investors and the other accelerators and incubators in the area.
The one thing I said to Johnny the day of the closing was, now I would like to sit on the other side of the table. I was invested within, and now I would like to kind of be a part and help out up there as much as I can.
And so we totally look forward to that. Your experience and understanding of what it takes to get it done is so valuable. And while the now 60 investors in the Startup Fund, as we launched our second fund and another $1 million raised a couple of years ago, broad-based experience, knowledge, and background, but the folks who have been on the explicit journey in a lightning fashion really have the best eyes. I often say that the best teachers are those who have most recently lived the experience. So for that, we're grateful and fortunate to work with Brad moving forward. And Brad will be around if we have time for Q&A later